Hi everyone, Bless Beats here. Today we'll be looking at a very important aspect of mixing, and that is width. Width is the easiest to experience while wearing headphones, so if you're not already wearing headphones, I suggest you put them on right now. Here I have a very narrow mix. I'm going to show you a bunch of techniques to make it super wide. Typically, a sound recording is in mono or stereo. A mono sound recording only has one channel, and it's going to sound like it's coming from the middle if it's panned to the center. A stereo sound, on the other hand, has two channels, one for each ear. For your song to sound wide, there needs to be a lot of difference between the left and the right channels, and that's the key to everything we're going to be talking about here today. Making everything wide can be tempting, but you shouldn't discredit the magic of mono. Centered mono sounds will be more solid and clear. On top of that, it'll make the wide stuff sound even wider in comparison. These centered mono sounds will also play back flawlessly on mono speakers, while stereo sounds or pan sounds will often get phase issues or volume dips. Now you might think that it doesn't matter, but mono speakers are actually very common in devices like phones and Bluetooth speakers nowadays. A rule of thumb is to leave the kick, snare, bass, and leads narrow in the middle, while instruments like piano, pads, and guitars can be wider. So in this case, I'm going to leave the drums and the bass narrow to get a solid center. Let's widen things up now. Panning things left and right is the most obvious way to get a wider mix. In case you're not familiar with panning, this little guy here is the pan knob. And with it, you can move the sound to the left or the right. But there are some things to consider while doing so. I already mentioned that it's the difference between the left side and the right side that makes it sound wide. So to achieve maximum wideness, you can pan contrasting sounds to opposite sides. For example, here I have two mono channels. One is playing this melody. And one is playing this arpeggio. They're pretty similar in a way since they're both synth plucks, but there's a lot that separates them. The character of the sound, the notes, and the rhythm are all different. So when I pan them left and right, it sounds really wide. If you pan them 100% left and right, you'll get the most width possible. Although the further the pan, the quieter it will be when you play it in mono. So it's up to you if you think it's worth it. For me, these sounds are not the focus of the song, so it doesn't really matter to me if they get a little bit lost when played back in mono. I'll keep it at 100%. Let's move on to the next technique. A very common recording technique, especially for guitars and background vocals, is called double tracking. Double tracking is when you record the exact same part twice, and you take those takes and you pan them out hard left and right to make it sound wide and thick. The reason why this works is because humans can't play or sing something the exact same way twice. There will always be subtle differences in pitch, timing, and character that separate the left and right channels. This doubling effect is not limited to recording audio though. Here I have a synth playing some chords in mono. I want to double this up, so I'll right-click and choose Clone Channel and Content to create an exact copy. Now I'll pan them left and right, and let's see what that sounds like. It sounds exactly the same. There's no width. It's just a little bit louder, and that's because we have the exact same signal both on the left and the right. And like I said before, there needs to be a difference for it to be wider. An easy solution for this is to change out the sound for something that's similar yet different. I will change the instrument to the VA synth and choose the preset Humana because it has a similar vibe. Let's take a listen. There we go. Now it's got width. To emulate double tracking even more, you could also record the MIDI with a keyboard twice, but I think in this case, switching the sound is good enough. Some synths make it even simpler with stereo spread functions. In Soundation, the synths that have this type of function are Europa, Supersaw, and the Wub Machine. I have this channel right here with Europa that is in mono right now. Let's open it up. We're looking for the unison section, which is right here. I'll turn it on. And we can even see it visually here, how it takes one voice and doubles it up 3 times. You can choose how many you want here. To make the 3 voices sound different, you add a little detune. And then you turn up the spread to basically pan these voices out to the sides. You can also blend it in to get more or less of the effect. Real quick, the Supersaw has a simplified version of this with just a detune and spread. In the Wub Machine, you have to use both oscillators, pan them, and turn on the Reese or unison. If you want that doubled sound, but you can't double track it or find a sound that's similar enough, the Haas effect can come in handy. This is something you can add to anything to make it sound wide. The Haas effect is really cool. It's when you delay the signal of the left or the right channel slightly by 40 milliseconds or less. This creates enough of a difference between the left and the right channels for us to perceive it as very wide. It still sounds like it's from the same source though, because the delay isn't long enough for our brains to distinguish it as a delay. I have this house piano here that's in mono that we can try it on. It already has an EQ and a fakie effect, and I'm going to add a delay between them. There's a preset called Stereoizer that will give you the Haas effect. The dry is all the way down, the wet is all the way up, so you'll only hear the delays and not the original signal. The filter isn't doing anything, and there's no feedback. The left side has the lowest value possible, which is 1 millisecond, which is basically nothing. And the right side is at 35 milliseconds, but you can adjust it to fit your sound. For short and snappy sounds, a shorter delay usually sounds better, while a longer delay suits better for long and sustained sounds. This sound is pretty snappy, so I'll bring it down a little. Side effect of this technique is that the side with a 1 millisecond delay sounds like it's a little bit louder than the other side, but this is not the case. It's just an illusion. Our brain perceives it that way because the sound hits that ear first, so it perceives it as coming from that direction. If you prefer that it sounds like it's coming from the other side, you can just flip these values around and have the 1 millisecond delay on the right and the longer delay on the left. A good trick to add some width while keeping the stability of a mono sound is to use reverb and delay. This will obviously not only add width, but also a sense of space and atmosphere around the sound, making it fit better into the mix. If that's what you want, you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Let's try it out on this lead synth. First, I'll add the delay. You can try different presets or dial in your own sound, but the important thing is that left and right have different times, so we get that stereo spread. I'm just going to leave it on default, but turn up the wet for a stronger effect. Now we can hear the delay kind of bouncing from left to right. Next up, I'll add a reverb. and just increase the size and wet a bit. For a wide sound, make sure the width is set high. And this is what it sounds like in the mix. I'll toggle the effects on and off so you can hear how it fills out the space and makes it fit a lot better while still keeping it focused in the middle. The last technique I want to cover is using the tremolo effect. This will do automatic panning across the stereo field like it's spinning around your head. I will add this to the same lead, but I want it to come before the reverb and delay so they leave a trail after the tremolo. For this effect, make sure the phase is at 0% and then you can play with the depth and speed. The depth is how wide it goes and the speed is how fast it moves. I'll bring up the depth and turn down the speed a little. And this is what it sounds like. It loses some of its focus, but it adds a lot of liveliness to the stereo image. This is something you should only use sparingly, otherwise it can get too distracting and chaotic. Those were our tips on how to get a wide mix using a wide variety of techniques. Like, subscribe, comment what you want to learn next, and we'll see you then. Now, let's take a listen to our final mix.